Welcome back to another episode of the Hardcore Casual with your boy, Base the Kid. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. Now, we've got a couple of small things to talk about, but we're also going to have a little bit of a reaction to the Saudi Wembley Stadium edition card. You know, the Riyadh season, that's what they've christened it as, the Wembley Stadium edition. I mean, I don't know where that name came from. Obviously, I mean, it is a bit bang on the nose, but when you have, you know, names like Ring of Fire, Day of Reckoning, what was the other one? What's the one? I mean, obviously there was the 5v5, but there was actually a name for Better Beef and Bivol, or what was the other one? Knockout Chaos, which wasn't necessarily a great name, but the video game concept that came with it was, you know, stellar. You know, you kind of got all of those names and then you just get Wembley Stadium edition. Sounds a bit underwhelming. But with that being said, yeah, we're gonna have a review of that and a few other bits and pieces throughout this. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so I guess the first bit of quick news is that Devin Haney has been placed as WBC champion in recess for the super lightweight division / junior welterweight, and the title will next be contested by Sandor Martin and Alberto Puello in his stead, and obviously he will have the option, if he chooses, to come back and fight for the title once he sort of comes back from wherever he's coming back from. Now, there is a part of me that says the only time you should ever be made champion in recess is, number one, if you're moving up to another division to test the waters, or maybe you've got a I don't know, maybe like a more lucrative unification fight and you can't necessarily get out of your mandatory or something like that. So champion in recess, go take that fight, come back. Or if you're injured and you can't defend the belt. In this instance, he's in a state where he's not prepared to fight, whether that's because of the money for Sandor Martin, or maybe he's been made champion in recess because it's something to do with mental health. And if that's the case, that would make sense-ish, because they do have some form of wellness policy with the WBC and some of the other organizations like that. Now, I remember there was a tweet that he put out, I think a couple days ago. It was after Mauricio Sulaiman basically said the people are asking what the WBC will do with regards to Ryan Garcia, and he's like, well, we're not going to do anything. We're about supporting people in times of problems and stuff, and we're here to support Ryan Garcia. And I remember Devin Haney tweeted something along the lines of, wait a minute, like, what about my health and my mental health? You guys saw what this guy did to me. He cheated. Like, he had me, peds and all sorts of stuff in his system, and you guys have forced me into a mandatory title defense after the physical and mental damage that I suffered. But you're gonna nurse him back to health, and he was upset by that. Now, again, I'm not saying verbatim, I can't remember exactly the words of the tweet, but I remember that was basically the crux of it. How are you giving this guy all of this peace and mental health adjudication and love and support, and we want you to get better, but you're throwing a mandatory on me just a couple of months after what I went through in the ring against the Dirty Fighter? And you know what? I have to agree with him. Now look, I am not a person who believes that the belt should ever be held up at any time, so that going in recess, I feel is the right thing. Essentially say, look, we're going to make you champion in recess. Once you feel suitably ready to come back, you can either come straight back into a title fight, you can have a little tune-up fight if you want, and then we'll make that, and we guarantee that you come back in. And I feel that that's the way it should always move if a champion is taking long or wants an extended period of time outside of the ring. But in this particular instance, I do find that for some reason, look, I know a lot of people don't like Devin Haney and they don't like Bill Haney, and that's cool. You're free to not like who you want to like, but the level of abuse and disrespect that he's getting off of the back of getting beaten up by someone who essentially cheated twice in the fight. Because right now I've actually got no qualms of saying that I think Ryan Garcia intentionally cheated. I think he intentionally took PEDs, and I think he intentionally was looking for edges all around that fight. I mean, the fact that he came in and blew the weight 3 pounds and didn't try to make it is already him cheating from a contractual standpoint. Then, you know, even if it's like, oh, trace amounts of this Ostarine, but then all of a sudden you've got Ostarine in 2 products that you've used in the camp, but then the manufacturer of one of those goes, no, we've tested the batch lot that you're claiming had contaminations within it, and guess what, that contamination is not in our products. And also the level of contamination that was in the quote-unquote products that he was taking was a lot less than what was actually in his system. So with all of that being said, I'm sorry, like, that was all the evidence needs to suggest that you were cheating, or someone in your team gave you stuff, whether you knew about it or not, but you were 100% on gear. But yet the guy who did everything right, okay, the guy that you might not like for maybe his views, his beliefs, maybe as outspoken and brash as him and his dad or whatever, but the guy that was professional, that always makes weight, never misses weight, always fulfills his contractual obligations, that's the guy that gets clowned. And that's definitely an issue with with the world these days. It's crazy that the guy that's the cheater, the guy that's in this particular scenario, the guy that is the actual scum, if you're going to put in that, is the one that's lauded and praised. And then the guy that's, gone about things the right way, the guy that's professional, is the one that's getting vilified and laughed at. But, I mean, look, I guess in some ways, everyone's got a prerogative to say what they say, feel how they feel, and, and take whatever consequences come with it. But yeah, look, with regards to that, if Devin has come from it from a perspective of my mental health has suffered because of this, or my well-being, my physical well-being, I don't feel like I'm recovered from, the traumatic experience that it ended up being, then fair enough, champion in recess. But outside of that, I feel as if you've just vacated the belt, then the belt should just be vacant. And maybe you can politic with them a year or two down the line to say, I would like to maybe get back in there, put me in a final eliminator. I feel like I've earned that or something. Or maybe him having this championship in recess is a way for him to actually be able to parlay it to move up to 147 and maybe challenge Mario Barrios, next year, or whenever he's got or whoever, I guess. If Mario Barrios loses the belt to someone, then maybe Devin might have the rights to be the number 1 challenger for that belt at 147. I'm not quite sure. Either way, yeah, the champion in recess thing, yeah, but Alberto Puello and Sandor Martin fighting for the belt, I'm gonna be real with you, that's not going to be a very entertaining fight to watch. But with that being said, both guys, I guess, do have the right to to challenge for it. Sandor is the number 1 contender. Puello is the next in line, and he is coming off a very good win over Gary Antoine Russell. He was stripped of his belt for PED use, although that whole situation does look a bit dodgy in terms of how these PEDs ended up in his system when no other tests were showing anything similar to that before. But yeah, it and that whole situation just seems to be engineered so that Rolly Romero could have had an easier opponent, who was Ishmael Barroso, who ended up actually not being an easier opponent. But that's a whole subplot, that's conspiracy theories. But I'm just saying, when you look at the timeline of how everything played out, it doesn't look as clean cut as we believed it to be. And Alberto Puello was never actually charged with anything, and from what I can remember, I don't actually think he even officially served a ban. He just didn't fight because PBC didn't have any fights for him. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how the timeline went. I might check that for future reference. But anyway, that's that situation. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Okay, and I guess in a bit of a amalgamation story, talking of, you know, titles being in recess and vacated and whatnot, Alexander Usyk has sent a gift to Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois in the form of the IBF heavyweight championship. He put out a video yesterday, I believe it was the day before, basically saying that I know the IBF is important to both you, Daniel, and you, AJ. So this is my gift to you. He said something in Ukrainian, and then obviously in the post he said something along the lines of "we love strong" or something. So I guess that's like we love strong people, we love strong fighters, whatever it may be. But so he's basically gifted them the belt, vacated it. I mean, he did petition initially to say for the IBF to not strip him or not force him into the mandatory, because he did have the contractual obligation to Tyson Fury, and he did want that title, that shot, to be for the undisputed, and then I'm sure he would have been willing to face his IBF mandatory afterwards. But all I can particularly think is probably he's been paid some very nice money to relinquish that belt, and he managed to hold it for, I believe, 3 months, about 2 months now, from the May 18th card up till, I guess, what are we now, the 26th of June. 5 weeks. He's held it for about 5-6 weeks. Now, ultimately, handing that belt over is almost a bit of a slap in the face if you think about it, because he's beaten both of those guys. One of them via knockout, the other one via decision twice. Even though one of them was split decision, realistically it was a unanimous. Both of those fights were unanimous. So he beat both of these guys, but yet they're both fighting for an interim version of a title that he defended against both. So he's like, okay, well, you know what, you can have that, because ultimately all it does is lead back to me, and I've already proven that neither of you are on my level. Now, of course, things change, but it does feel a bit like a Sonnen situation. Like, he's definitely there being a little bit extra cheeky with it, even though it's a gracious move. There's a little bit of cheek in there, and it's like, well, you've got basically two people, my leftovers are fighting for my sloppy seconds. That's kind of how it plays out. That being said, let's talk about that card, because I want to put all of this into one sort of big package. Pause. Now, when you look at the Wembley card, first thing I'm going to say is I was underwhelmed. I'll be real, I was underwhelmed, and it's not because of, I heard that a New Way was going to be on it and Wardley Clark and whatnot, but I spoke to someone, maybe a couple people that work for DAZN today at the press conference, or maybe yesterday, depending on when you watch this, and they agreed with me that it was underwhelming to a degree. However, they told me some of the fights that were actually supposed to be on the card that never made it. Now, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say. I do think they did say for me to keep something quiet. I can't remember which one it was. So for that fact, I won't speak on the fights that were supposed to be on the card. Actually, there is one I know I can speak about. Fabio Wardley and Frazier Clark was supposed to be on the card. The reason that fight wasn't on the card was due to money. Basically, they couldn't agree purses in time, and essentially it's just a case of both guys, I guess, were wanting more money than they got in the first one, which is fair, but I guess it was just more money than maybe the whole Riyadh season were prepared to give, considering the fact that the card itself wasn't taking place in Riyadh. That's just my speculation. Another one I can maybe talk is obviously Chris Eubank Jr. was obviously supposed to face Hamza Shiraz, or that was the plan. He was offered the fight. He did decline it again due to money. I can speak about those. I can't speak about the others that were supposed to be on the card. But what I will say is Inoue wasn't in the conversation. That was spoken about early days, but that's not one of the ones that was supposed to be on there that didn't end up being on the card. But with that being said, so let's go through the card itself. So you got Mark Chamberlain against Josh Padley. Josh Padley, I've not seen, but I did see that he won. I think it was a Central Area or a Central Area title. I think it was against was it Johnny First? I know the fighter, I just haven't seen the fight. So I can't say much about Josh Padley, but I do know he's like 14-0 with 4 KOs. Whereas Mark Chamberlain is 16-0 and I think he's got like 11 KOs now or something along those lines. Chamberlain, the thing is with Mark Chamberlain, he's a very good fighter. I just feel as if he's not really, these kind of fights for him, outside of being showcase fights, they're not really doing much for him, because Padley is, from what I can see, is not in any particular ranking. So this fight is like it's a mark in time fight. It doesn't get him any closer to a world title opportunity or the European title or anything like that. So while he's making some nice money out of it, this one isn't really a career progressor. So I feel a bit bad for him in that sense. But you got that fight there, which, you know what, it might be fun for a couple rounds, and hopefully it ends early, because, you know, sometimes these cards do drag on a bit. But you got that fight there. Then you've got Joshua Buatsi versus Hutch Train Hutchinson. If you guys see the Buatsi interview I done, you know exactly why that's the name that he gets referred to as. Shout out to Joshua. But yeah, that fight is a good fight, and obviously that fight was supposed to initially be Anthony Yarde from a couple months back. We all kind of know what happened with that, but Joshua Buatsi is very happy to be on, you know, a Saudi, a Riyadh season card. I'm sure he's being paid very handsomely for that, and it's taking place at Wembley. WBO interim title, which means that they will be next in line for the winner of Beterbiev and Bivol, and if any of them decide to drop that belt, then either person will get elevated up to full champion, which is, you know, interesting stuff. Now, that fight is a good fight, and I feel that that fight is worthy of being on this undercard. Tyler Denny versus Hamza Shiraz. I will admit I did not see this one coming. The funny thing is, I knew that Tyler Denny would be fighting in September, but I didn't put the 2 and 2 together, because, you know, I spoke with Ben Shalom off camera on Saturday, and obviously he done a couple interviews. He said, you know, we were worried about Tyler maybe taking some damage, but because he's fresh, it's a sharp turnaround. We're happy. We want to get him back out in September. Now, I figured that's because they had a fight night scheduled themselves. Maybe it was a bit of a Freudian slip that he let slip that it would be September, indicating that he's now, you know, basically been invited to the party when it comes to the Riyadh season. But yeah, it's a quick turnaround for Tyler Denny. I know that this weekend, I think he's going on it's a stag do that he's organized for one of his friends, but he should be hopefully back in the gym I guess early next week. And yeah, he's got a big task on his hands. This is an interesting fight, but it's still not a fight I was expecting, or a fight that I was particularly looking for initially. So I can't say like it's a great one. However, this is Hamza Shiraz is the WBC silver champion, which obviously parlays him into a world title opportunity at some point, and obviously Carlos Adames is WBC full champion now. But this will be a you know, for the EBU, the proper European middleweight title. It's a tough ask for Tyler Denny, I'm gonna be real, but the benefit he has is he is not killing himself to make the 160 limit. Hamza Shiraz is very disciplined, and he does his weight well and he does it diligently, but you can see that he's bursting at the seams. That could play into Tyler Denny's hands, but I have got no illusions that this will definitely be the hardest fight of his career if he is to have any success. But we'll talk about it a bit more towards the start of the fight and the week ahead. Now, the one fight on this card, well, actually there's two fights, I'm gonna be real, that I'm very, very underwhelmed by. First of all, Anthony Cacace versus Josh Warrington. Now, Cacace deserves to be on this card. Amazing performance against Joe Cordina back on the Ring of Fire undercard. But Josh Warrington, who is a career 126 pounder, coming up in weight for his first fight, and in his first fight gets a title shot. After, bear in mind, he's had one win in his last 5 fights. He's had 1 win, 1 draw, 3 losses. 2 of those losses by knockout. His very last fight was a knockout loss, and it was a comprehensive knockout loss. The fight before that was a decision, was a pretty comprehensive decision loss as well. Then it was a draw. Then he had one sort of comeback fight. I think it was the Kiko Martinez fight where he got, I think he got stoppage victory in that one, and then but before that fight there he ended up with the knockout loss to what's his name, Bronco Lara. So him jumping up in weight and being given this opportunity, to me, I think is like, I'm gonna be real, I think it's bullshit. And that's not to, you know, take anything away from him. But I think the reason, if you want me to be honest, I think the reason why he's been given this opportunity is because he's got a massive fan base behind him. And they're trying to guarantee, I think, that Wembley sells out. And the way to do that is to get some really big ticket sellers on the card. Josh Warrington is one of the most proven ticket sellers in the UK. He could quite easily bring 15 to 20,000 people from Leeds down to Wembley for this event. And I think that's part of the reason why he's on this card, is purely because of the tickets. Because outside of that, he has no merit being on this card. And on the stage, he was talking about, yeah, you know, this guy suffered a loss and then was back in a world title fight in their very next fight, etc, etc. Yeah, but they didn't suffer 2 losses back to back. They didn't win only 1 fight in their last 5 fights. They didn't step up to a brand new weight with no credentials in that weight. And yeah, he's had a very good career overall, but you're supposed to earn these opportunities, and this ain't one he's earned. So it has to be about the fan base. That's the only thing I can think of, and that may make me sound a certain way. It's cool. Like, I'm quite happy to take the bullets on that one, but I think that fight's a bit of a it's not a trash fight in terms of, I think it will be fun while it lasts, but Anthony Cacace is huge compared to Josh Warrington, and he hits hard. And we've seen Josh Warrington can get caught. He's not the hardest of punchers, so there's just nothing going for him in this, except for possibly work rate. That might be the only thing, but even then I feel like Cacace's got just as much of that. So yeah, he better hope that Cacace has got a terrible weight cut en route to this fight, and he makes the weight really bad and it leaves him drained and depleted and just flat, because outside of that, it's not gonna be a good night for Josh Warrington, nor should it be. That's my little bit of a rant on that one. And then Liam Smith versus Josh Kelly at 160 pounds, a division that neither guy is ranked in, I don't think. I know Liam is ranked properly across the 154 bodies. I know he went up to 160 in his last couple fights. I think he may have got a ranking after the first Chris Eubank Jr. win, but then the knockout loss afterwards, I'm sure took him out of the majority of the ranking. So it's a fight that on paper, yeah, it's a fight, but again, it's like a fight that doesn't lead to anything. It's just, that's a fight that you know Wasserman could have put on Channel 5 on their Friday night fights or something like that, or Sky could have had as maybe a main event of one of their boxer cards or something. It's an underwhelming fight in the sense that it's not for anything. It has no significance, and if it ends up being the chief support, I wouldn't be happy about that, because why was it the chief support? There's no belts on the line, there's no rank standings on the line, it's not an eliminator for anything from what I've seen thus far. It's just a bit of a nothing fight. So if you look at this, you've got Mark Chamberlain against Josh Padley, which is a nothing fight. And then you've got Kakache versus Warrington, which I'm not going to say is a mismatch, but is a fight that isn't merited in any way, shape or form. But, you know, shout outs to Anthony Kakache. He deserves his moment. But then you've got Liam Smith against Josh Kelly. I don't even really see that as being a fight that's fun to watch for the most part. Not unless Josh Kelly gets tired in the first couple of rounds, and then, you know, he's having to hold his feet and trade with Liam Smith on the inside and whatnot. Outside of that, that's going to be a very, I can already see how that fight plays out. But that's the undercard. Let me know what you guys think. Personally, I think it's very underwhelming. There's only 2 fights on there that I think are of any note, and that's Denny and Shiraz and you know, Boatsi and Hutchison. But main event, the new IBF heavyweight champion, Daniel Dynamite Dubois, let's give him his full title, against AJ Anthony Joshua, former 2-time unified heavyweight champion, vying to become only the 4th man in history to be a 3-time heavyweight champion. That's some good history to have, to be totally honest. He is, yeah, because Klitschko, Vladimir was champion twice, and so was Vitali. Yeah, so it's Lennox Lewis, Muhammad Ali, and Evander Holyfield is the only 3-time champions, and Evander Holyfield is the only 4-time heavyweight champion in the world. So he'll be amongst some pretty big names if he can pull this one off. Now, it's a good fight. This, you know, I won't say it's the greatest fight in the division, but Daniel Dubois has the belt now, so it makes sense to fight him. Daniel Dubois has shown that he has turned the corner in his career in terms of his approach to, you know, his approach to boxing, his mental approach, his mental toughness, his grit and determination. Everything has kind of turned around from the Usyk loss up until now. But make no mistake, this will be the hardest fight of his career in terms of punishment. He's gonna have to come through the fire to win this fight, because while he was bamboozled by Alexander Usyk and like worn out and basically, you know, just beaten on the battle of attrition, Anthony Joshua has that show-stopping power. Now, so does Daniel Dubois, to be fair. They both have their frailties, they both have their strengths. I think Anthony Joshua hits harder and he hits more correct, and is also able to throw his shots from further out and keep distance a lot better than Daniel Dubois. But Daniel Dubois has got a much higher work rate than Anthony Joshua. He seems to be able to find the recovery that Joshua struggles with. And of the two of them, I do think that Daniel Dubois has the better punch resistance. Although, if he gets caught anywhere towards the top of his head, he usually does wobble. He has a little tail where normally his right leg kicks out. It's almost like uncontrollably compared to when he gets hit. But if he hits Joshua, I think Anthony Joshua will stay hit a lot longer than Daniel Dubois will. But that being said, Joshua's got much better defense and he's much more defensively responsible than Daniel Dubois is. So this is a very, very interesting fight. It's an intriguing fight. And, you know, one thing I'll say, while I said that, to me, the belt should have remained vacant until this fight concluded, because the fight was pretty much signed before the belt, you know, was vacated by Usyk. There was no reason to elevate Daniel Dubois, because yes, he had the interim title after beating Filip Hrgović, but that interim was really just to put them as the mandatory to the world champion. And in the event that the world champion was injured and wasn't able to take his fight, then the interim champion is the person who then, you know, assumes the duties of that up until the time as when the full champion is fully healed, and then, you know, you do your consolidation. Well, in this one, obviously Usyk has vacated it to say that's fine, but if he's vacated it, they should be fighting for a vacant title. Daniel Dubois shouldn't be now a world champion without technically earning the right to be the world champion. He fought Hrgović, but Hrgović wasn't the world champion. This fight, obviously, if the belt's vacant, then you've beaten the next best guy in the division to get that. That's how I kind of see it should have been done, but I do understand politics are as they are. The one person I can actually give some ratings to in terms of not accepting an interim belt and saying no, I'll rather fight for the vacant belt, I don't just want to be gifted the title, was Sky Nicholson. So shout out to Sky Nicholson, because she was the interim WBC champion. She said no, don't elevate me, I want to fight for the title. And if they had the next highest person ranked, which I believe was Sarah Mahfoud, and she won the belt in the ring, against the next highest ranked contender. So that's how I would have liked to have seen this one go, but fair enough, it's not going that way. Daniel Dubois now is legitimately a world heavyweight champion, even though Michael Buffer called him a two-time heavyweight champ. No, the regular WBA belt doesn't count, and you guys need to stop that. It's annoying at this point. But yeah, interesting fight, intriguing fight, and it is the fight that I guess the event's going to be sold on. I reckon that's a good 40 to 50,000 tickets just on the main event, maybe 60. I do think Josh Warrington is, like I said, is on this card to bring about another 18,000 tickets for the Leeds local, and then the rest will kind of be divvied up between the other the other fighters that are on the card. But yeah, look, let me know what you guys think of the card. Overall, my opinion of the card is it's not a bad card, but it's not that great. And it's probably, of all of the Saudi-backed cards that we've had thus far, I definitely think it's the weakest. Maybe that's something to do with monetary value of, trying to, rent Wembley Stadium. I'm assuming it's not cheap. And Saudis, they may have money, but they're not just going to throw stupid money out after, just for no reason. Plus they've got the start of the proper Riyadh season, I think it's 2 or 3 weeks after that. So maybe they just wanted the advertisement to be the attraction of Anthony Joshua. So maybe that's the situation, or maybe Anthony Joshua just taking up so much money for this fight that they didn't really want to have to dig into the coffers extra for the rest of the undercards. Like I said, there's a lot of just weird fights on there, pointless fights, some fights where they definitely look like they could be mismatch-esque, but it's an okay card. Like, it's, I wouldn't, if I went there, I wouldn't sort of begrudge and be just waiting for the main event. So my rating, I give it a 5.5, maybe a 6. That's my rating of the card overall. Let me know what you guys think. I know this has been a very long video, but I haven't done one of these in a while, so I wanted to give an extended version for you guys. Don't forget, there will be a casual stream tomorrow, and I should have Tyler Denny rolling through on the stream to talk about obviously his victory over the weekend, plus his upcoming fight before he heads off to his stag do. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I know it's been a long one, but you guys have been here riding with me. I appreciate it. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. But for right now, it's the Hardcore Casual out.